Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, produced in partnership with Operation Smile. Operation Smile is an international medical charity that provides life-changing surgery to children and adults with cleft lip and palate. Learn more about their essential work at emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to Christos Kosmas, CFO at MorGen Energy. Christos discusses how his curious nature led to a career in renewable energy.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership, as ever, with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As my colleague Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Christos onto the show today. And just to get things started, our usual question with any guest we have on the show to get you settled in and aligned with the link to Operation Smile, we always like to ask the guests what the last thing was that made them smile. So I guess, Christos, the first question to you would be, what was the last thing that made you smile?
Hi, Paul. Good to be here. I'm delighted to speak to you today. So, I guess I'd have to say that seeing my wife and kids this morning, before sending them off to school, that was definitely one of the things that made me smile today.
That's cool, and it's always good to keep the people that are closest to you close to heart and close to mind, because it reminds you of the reason why you're doing everything, right? So whether it's career, whether it's things outside of work, this is, I suspect, a big part of your why as to how you develop your career and push yourself forward.
Certainly, yeah. My family is a big part of giving meaning to my life, for sure.
Oh, that's excellent. And I guess what I mentioned there a moment ago about career, and obviously one of the things we wanted to talk about today is your background. You know, I think it's really inspiring. It will definitely emulate with a lot of people in our network, and I think, you know, the passion you've got for the roles you do, but also the industry that you're in. It's always really jumped out to me when we've spoken. So I think it's going to be hopefully an interesting podcast. One way you can highlight these passion and interest. And I think maybe a good place to start is when you look back over your career. In itself is quite unusual, because you made the move from engineer to CFO in the renewable energy sector. So I thought the first question would be, you know, what do you feel were the defining moments in your career, and how did these decisions shape where you are today?
Sure, it's an understandable question. I guess, in a nutshell, the driving force has always been curiosity. I remember still when I was finishing my engineering studies that I still felt that I kind of possessed half the truth, you know, on how the world works. And I really didn't understand a lot, as many of us engineers do, about how the other half works, the commercial/financial side of things. So this was at that stage certainly a driving force. Through my studies, obviously already had come into contact with optimization problems, and these are always solved kind of in the intersection between technical and commercial, right? So I was conscious that I had a gap in that area, and I wanted to fill that gap. So I, after a brief stint of working in natural gas, I chose to do an MBA. And, MBA studies, it's kind of like a highway in many ways to consulting. But that for me was really not where I thought I would do my best work. So I could very quickly understand that with the engineering background that I could bring into the game, and now a financial or business understanding, if you like, I could really offer a lot in the energy industry. So that was pretty clear already from that stage, and I looked for jobs that combine these two skill sets. So I took up my first role actually after these studies in project finance, which was also a new territory for me. I did not know a lot about. I just knew that it seemed like the next good thing, you know, that is really good to hop on and learn. I got to work in actually several types of infra there, which included other non-energy related assets, motorways and the likes. But it was very clear, especially when I did my first energy project, I was very sure that I was hooked. It was back then a conventional power plant, CCGT, as we call them, and just energy economics. It really grasped me immediately from the get-go. Yeah, so it was clear to me I had to stay in this industry. Not to bore you with all the details of my trajectory. Essentially, after several years in conventional energy, it had become pretty clear to me also that the direction the world is going is towards a green future, renewables. So in 2018, I took my first such role in private equity. And I pretty much stayed on the green side since then. Another, let's say, twist in the road was 3 years ago almost, when I decided to join hydrogen. I was already tracking for some years hydrogen as subject matter expert, but when this opportunity came along, I thought, I was convinced that this is coming up. This is something which the world needs. We cannot possibly move towards net zero, be it in year 2050 or perhaps somewhat later, whenever it will come, without solutions on this side, on the storage side. So I could understand the necessity, and I thought, yes, I want to be a part of this. And, if we can make it work, it will be brilliant. And if we can't make it work, we'll deal with that in a few years' time. As it happened, we did. We were successful. It took a lot of work, obviously, from the whole team here. So, which is even better, right? And here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's it's interesting to see how your curiosity in taking maybe calculated risks as you started your career has then had that impact in the longer term career as well, and then led you to be involved in something in your day job that is also a big passion for you as well. And I suppose. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who have a passion for renewable energy or an interest in renewable energy, but they probably stop at that. They don't necessarily then make a career out of it or use it as a basis for their career, which is obviously something that you've done. So where does this passion for the renewable energy come from, and what is it that really excites you about the market in the industry?
I think this goes back to this whole optimization thing I mentioned before. So it's really a sector, because electricity, especially electricity market economics, is so reactive. You could have huge jumps up and down depending on, is wind blowing on this hour of the day, or is human activity up or down, or is it a holiday, is it a working day, and so on. It just makes such a tremendous difference. There's nothing like it. You don't see that, in many other sectors. And there's just so much that comes into play, just kind of like a big puzzle, I suppose, in order to see the full picture and make something out of it that works. It's just a major challenge for me that I enjoy. As other people might enjoy doing a Sudoku puzzle, which I also enjoy, by the way. It's kind of like this. So I honestly do very much like the content of my work. It also helps quite a lot to know that the societal impact of it is positive. It's something very useful for the world that I can proudly speak to my children about, for example. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think you mentioned your children there, and it's, as you say, it must be great to be able to, for them to know that you're working in this industry in the market that is doing good for the world. I mean, I think that's something that I think is at the heart of this whole renewable energy industry. I think the vast majority of people agree that it is doing there's something good and trying to make things better, which again, you must be proud of that your children and your wife know that you are involved in, really.
My wife is working for a company that deals with cancer medication, and liver medication, excuse me. So that's also quite important. So I can't take the. But what I would say is, I think we are all very lucky to be living in a time now when we can discuss those things. Because if you go back 20 years even, or let alone 50 years, for example, concepts like climate change and energy transition, the necessity for all of that, they were not even there, or they would have been laughed at if somebody would propose it. So now we live at a time when we can see that, for our future, it's not for the planet is still going to be there, but for our future, to continue the way of life that we have, these are issues that we need to deal with. And thankfully, a lot of intelligent people are involved, solving issues on the technical level, which we can then roll out in our businesses and actually create something for society that tackles the problem. And we can gradually get there, that we can rely solely on renewable energy, for example, for electrification of our grids and so on.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of this as well is that a lot of the decision making you have to make on a regular basis is not easy. In this industry, they're very. It's a complex industry where you have to think short, medium, and long term. So have that strategic mindset on things as well. So I mean, how do you approach the decision making when maybe making the right answer isn't always obvious, and there's not always obvious trade-offs to these decisions you make?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Generally speaking, you just have to lay it all down. Sometimes there are very clear-cut solutions which are tried and tested, and there's nothing wrong with taking that route. You just have to use your mind and think, is this a case where I need to challenge the status quo or not? In many cases, though, as we are in a kind of cutting-edge industry that is discovering the path as we go along, there isn't an established status quo, and we have to figure out what is the sensible, optimal way to do things. And I generally find that once I put my realistic options down on the table and look at them and assess each, you clearly the solution starts to emerge, and you cannot think black and white. Of course, while doing this, you have to think kind of in terms of gray, because nothing is really ever purely black or white. I guess I can give you a concrete example, perhaps, so which is very, very tangible in our sector. Imagine that you intend to build a hydrogen production facility, and you have to choose where to procure your electricity from. So in looking at your various options, imagine that you have an offer from one party that can provide electricity slightly cheaper, albeit intermittently, and you have an offer from another party that can provide baseload at a little markup. So it's not black and white, right? You don't just go for the cheaper. You have to put it down. You have to put it in your model. You say, okay, but if I work actually on a baseload mode, then I get a much higher utilization of my plant, and perhaps the bottom line in this case will be better, even though I pay a higher price per unit of feedstock, if you will. My electricity is my main feedstock. So once you do the math, you put it in the model, usually the truth emerges on the other side, and you can make a sensible decision and justify that decision.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what's quite interesting, I mean, I know at the start of the show you mentioned that you have quite a curious mind, and you can see in that example there that you've obviously got to be good with numbers, good with data analytics to do the role you're doing, but probably behind all of that, it's the curiosity and the what if scenarios you have to run, and that mindset that you mentioned at the start is something that is, I imagine, something you're using on a day-to-day basis in this role.
Yeah, that is correct. So, as said before, okay, several things we can do as we did last year, but generally this is a mindset that I try not to follow blindly. It's very common in the finance sector to think we will do, whatever it is we're doing, we'll do it the same way we did it last year, and this way we'll pass the audit and so on. But I mean, there's usually room for improvement, and if you have your eyes open, you look left, right, and center, you can usually do things better every year, and that's That's even preferable.
And I guess, aligned with the comment you just made there about trying to continually improve and do things better each year. I mean, like everybody, when you start out in your career, you know more now than what you did then, and you learn from people around you, and you learn your own approach to these different things. And I guess part of that is learning from the managers, leaders, and so on. And I guess a question that I thought would be quite interesting to ask you is about your own leadership style, because you obviously have a passion for the industry. You've got a curious mindset. There's a love for the industry you have, but then equally, you have to lead still in the right way and try and put some of these passions to one side and be the best leader you can be. So, I mean, how do you find that, and what would you say your leadership style is?
So I try to be very engaged with the people I work with. People generally, I find, respond well to that. So in my experience, for instance, people, when they leave in a company, they usually leave a manager. They don't leave because of the company itself. Equally, on the other side, if you have a manager that cares, that provides you with opportunities to learn, to shine, to expose yourself, that's well appreciated, and people tend to stay. And of course, once you find good people, you want them to stay. You don't want to lose good people from your team. And I'm very lucky to have a brilliant team here where I work now. It would definitely be wrong of me if I don't look after them. So I think it comes with the responsibility to lead teams, and you need to take this responsibility very seriously. It's not, I'm not a task manager. I'm dealing with people, and I have to take the time to care after these people, so that they can also do the best work that they can. And I do hope that if you would speak to them, you would hear that I provide that.
No, I think, as you say there, I think it's still, the people at the end of the day. And I think, everyone is different, unique in the way you can get the most out of them. And just as the same, different approaches will get the most out of you as well. But I think I would imagine if everybody, or the majority of people working in your current company or in the renewable energy industry generally, if there is that shared passion for the industry, then you're on the same page from the start. So at least you're trying to get to the same goal, even if maybe you don't always see eye to eye on how that is. At least the end goal is the same for most people in the business, which is a solid starting point, really.
Yeah, there's you would know it better than most. There's this Myers-Briggs analysis of personality types. The 4 main colors. And of course, you have to know what the person that you have opposite you on the table, what they respond best to. But that being said, I generally find that it is also a very quantitative, very pragmatic field that we're in. So we generally get personalities of a certain kind, and I don't think I differ myself from that either. And we being me and my colleagues and all the people that we interface with, generally react quite well to understanding why something is done the way it is done. And yeah, there's no steep hierarchy, orders coming from the top and the bottom has to obey. Actually, in my team at least, we discuss things quite openly, and I usually try to hear out what people have to say before I say my own opinion, because sometimes people might tend to feel that they should agree with whatever the person who's leading the team at that very moment is saying, and that's not productive. So it's but once a decision is made, of course, then we should all in the team, and that's super important, understand why we're doing it. Why do we think this is everything else taken into account? It is the best tactic, and this is how you ensure buy-in, and that we all work, towards the same goal, and not one person going left, another going right. So that's super important for a team to function well. That's to have a shared direction and buy-in from all the members.
I mean, I guess staying on the subject of people development and talent. So, for the group of people who are listening to the show today, who maybe they share your passion for the industry, but maybe early on in their career, so they don't yet have all of the finance knowledge they would need. What would your advice be to them if there's someone listening who wants to kind of emulate what you've done? Is there a certain direction you feel people can go in now to help move them in the same direction as you did years ago?
I don't think there's one direction that fits all. So what I would generally say to anybody who's at the beginning of their career is to not be afraid to take some risks. It should be calculated risks. Generally, we shouldn't act erratically, obviously, but an opportunity appears in front of you. You should assess it, and if it makes sense, everything included, then you should take it. Especially at the beginning of your career, you have the flexibility to do that. You can try things and then change direction easier than once you're 20 years down the line, for example, in a certain industry. And very important is to know yourself so that you choose the industry that suits you best. As I said in my example before, when I was doing my MBA, it was considered as the let's say the path where most of us would end up with was considered to be consulting in one way or another. There's many, of course, different tiers and directions of consulting. And I knew already at that stage, this is not what is going to make me happy, because I don't think I will perform, the same way as somebody who's really cut out for it would. And ultimately, you should orient yourself to an industry where you can think you can contribute a lot. And that's also going to contribute to your happiness if you do well at work. So, I would say know yourself, choose the right sector, and choose the right boss as well. That's very important. You go to an interview for a job, they interview you, but you at the same time should also be interviewing them. Is this somebody I want to work with? Is this somebody who's gonna, give me opportunities, help me rise? It's kind of like choosing a life partner. You choose your husband or wife, and the right one could really make you just as well as the wrong one could break you. So it's super important to get these things right.
Yeah, this is true, and I think I think you mentioned it earlier. People don't tend to leave companies; they leave their managers, and I think that was very much aligned with what you've just mentioned there as well. I mean, just before I move on to a different subject, when you did the MBA, I mean, I guess there's a lot of people who would say, well, they'd like to an MBA, they'd like to study out of work hours, but you would have probably the common reason why they don't is because they don't feel they have the time to do it. I mean, how did you fit all this in? Because I mean, obviously doing an MBA, it is time intensive. You've got to combine this with a day job. Life in general. I mean, how did you manage to fit it in? And I suppose, was that even a consideration for you when you signed up for it? Were you that fixated on doing it that you didn't really think about the time?
Good question. So I was, in a sense, lucky because I could afford, from a youth perspective, to take a break from work. So I took a year off, and I did my MBA full time without working in parallel. And frankly, hats off to the people who can do it next to a day job, and sometimes a day job and a family. And I did have some classmates who were not working, but had a family on the side of their studies. And I admire that. It was a lot of work. I don't know if I could have done it any other way. Obviously, when you do part-time, it is often spread over a year and a half or 2 years. So that accounts for slightly reduced workload, let's say, compared to a full-time MBA. I think it's for certain professionals, it's something extremely valuable. For example, for an engineer who wants to switch sides to finance, that could definitely have tremendous value to offer. Similarly, for other professions, doctors, etc. It really gives you a very deep dive in a relatively short time, and you get to be to understand a whole lot of issues if you want to go into business management in your career.
Mm-hmm. No, this is it, and I think it is one of those things that's everyone's situation is different, but there's no doubt when I look at yourself and other people we've had on the podcast show over the years, you tend to find it's the common traits of successful people is they do push themselves to the limits on the timing of things. I mean, this isn't a 9 to 5 life or job. I think it's trying to think, well, okay, whether you're doing a study, whether you're doing a day job, it's trying to maximize the hours that are in the day, and that's what you definitely tend to see as a common trait of successful people in their careers. But also you could name almost any hugely successful sports star or athletes, and it's the same with all of these individuals as well. It isn't just what you see in the office or on the sports field. It's what goes on there behind the scenes. They're always trying to do an extra 10 or 20% more than everybody else, which is the same as what I think you've done, and that's why you managed to achieve these things in your career as well. I mean, so what is next for you really, Christos? Because obviously we've talked a lot about where you started, where you are now, and what is next here? I mean, there's obviously so much going on in the renewable energy area. You probably may not even know what's next because the industry changes so quick. But any plans you've got for the next stage of your career?
So I really do like my work. I don't have any plans to change it. I like being operating, let's say, at the intersection, at the cross-section between finance and technical. Obviously, I am on the finance side, but I do have a technical understanding, and I work on something which is very tangible and very technical in nature. So that's certainly something very helpful. Frankly, I'm in love with my work. I like doing this, and I think I will just do more of the same for bigger projects, for more geographies, but as you say, at the same time, of course, let's be cognizant of the fact that we don't know what might come. For instance, when I started tracking hydrogen, probably something like 6 years ago or so, it was very clear it was something that would come, but nobody knew when exactly we should expect it. Surely sometime between, before 2050, yes, fine, that's easy to say, but yeah, we didn't know when it would become investable, and we would see the first projects take off and so on. So yeah, we don't know what else is going to come, what new invention is going to find good commercial use that somebody has to structure, somebody has to, commercially, financially, and so on, think how it will work best. And I would love to be part of that.
Yeah, and then you throw into the fact the ever-changing world of AI as well. There's probably something around there that is going to get into that industry as much as every other industry as well. So there's always going to be things changing and moving in the future to keep you busy and keep pushing forward. So, but I mean, it's been fantastic to speak to you today, Christos. I really appreciate your time going through all this. I think it's really interesting for the network to hear, where you've come from, the decisions you made in the early stages of your career that have then led you in the direction they have. And the thing that jumps out to me from this conversation, but also from previous conversations we've had, is the passion for the renewable energy industry and how you brought that into your day job. Because I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's the situation the vast majority of people want to be in. They want to be working for a company or an industry where, where they can get out in the morning and feel motivated and driven to start work. And that's clearly something you've done. And obviously anyone looking to emulate that, there's some great advice here on how they can do that. So yeah, once again, Christos, a huge thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And what we'll do when we post start posting the podcast, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn connections on there. So anyone wanting to reach out to ask questions or introduce, then they can do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And if people find it interesting, that will make me very happy.
Excellent. So I'm sure they will. In fact, I know they will. So that's all good. So thank you again, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye.